Hello everyone. Now today we're going to talk about interior elevations. Our next project, since we've done the floor plan and the reflective ceiling plan, will now be to elevate the kitchen and the bathroom walls of our space. So we're going to talk a little bit about interior elevations and what is the protocol for drafting them out. So let's take a look. So interior elevations. Here is a little bit about the vocabulary that we'll be looking at. We're going to talk a little bit about line types and some of the graphic conversions, what they mean, what are interior elevations, and the sequence of elevations. And some of the interior elevation symbols, these are very important. Some of the elevation profiles and edges that define a space or an item. We're going to talk a little bit about standard scales and details and just material representation, doors, windows, and so forth. Now, we're hoping that you'll have a better understanding after this on the student learning outcome of your elevations and their application for interiors. And the method of achieving this will be through the related assignments that we're going to do and I will be demoing. Now, interior elevation drawings. One thing is really important is the orientation. And this is something that we need to really decide what view will we be elevating. It's extremely important. So we have a plan view that's parallel to the picture plane, but interior elevation is really technically perpendicular. It really sticks out. So we want to create 4 sides of elevations. And this is going to give us the true size and shape of each one of these walls. The design or elevation, it emphasizes mainly, the character of the space or the finishes. This is why we like to do interior elevations. We want to show what's going on in each wall, what's the trim, the paint color. And so when you're looking at a plan view, if you look at A here, they say that's A. Over here on the teeny little, they have A, B, C, D on this little, what we would call kind of a diamond. This is called an elevation mark right here. That elevation mark represents the actual view you were looking at. So it says A, B, C, and D, and over here says A, B, C, and D. Looking at this floor plan, you would never guess that these are the elevations to this floor plan. So interior elevations, the content. What do they require? We require certain references. We need a floor boundary, right? So we know where to start. And the floor is always a very heavy line. And then we also need the wall boundary and the ceiling. This is showing us an entire wall area. Those are always the heaviest lines, the outline here, as you can see. Drawing express elevation projected objects and interior panes. So these express, some of these details express things that are projecting out, and you can create that look by line weights that make it appear like it's coming towards you, creating nice little detail areas. This kind of indicates maybe a bay window because these extra lines. So every line represents something in an interior elevation. And so we also want to know, what are some of the finishes? You may have, a paint finish, or you might have some stone. So this helps us to figure out what's going on that wall. Right now, what I can see in this wall is there must be some beams coming forward because of this little area. So it shows the ceiling kind of dropping and then beams would be coming towards us. Here, this shows a lot of little panes of windows. And I am assuming that this must be perhaps a bay window. Let's see if this has anything to do with over here. I don't know if it correlates to that elevation. So, as you can see, there's a lot of information there. So interior elevation drawings, here we're looking at a plan view. They correspond with the floors, walls, and ceilings. That's what the elevation is. Here, this is just all about the floor. This is a floor plan. Here is about the walls, the ceilings, and the floor. They give you the true characteristic, the shape, the size, and the proportion, if they're to scale. And it really focuses on the construction, the wall design, and the conditions that are surrounding an elevation. And it's kind of tricky because you would almost need to push all four of these walls together and surround it around here to create a 3D model. Over here, some type of triangle window that protrudes. So that is that elevation. Here we have a little boxed window. So that's what you would be seeing from the interior if you were looking. Over on and then this space right here, it's kind of a curve. You just see a curve, and then there's this little bump out area, which must be a little window that's sticking out. And then this side, you're seeing that very little window and part of the wall. So you can see that there's different elements on each one of these walls that are only created through the elevating this floor plan. So we also look at different things, the placements. We look at where doors are, windows are when we come to elevations. We also maybe will elevate cabinetry. And so there's some cues that tell us what those things are when we look at the floor plan. So elevations, some of their graphic symbols. As I alluded to, this is one of the most important graphic symbols that will be found on a plan view, the floor plan. This is called an elevation symbol. And this is a reference symbol. This is referencing which view we are looking at. So you can see inside of this floor plan, A is pointing over here, B, C, and D. And it always goes in order, A, B, C, and D, and it goes clockwise. And you always string your elevations in order. You wouldn't have A, then D, then C. You would have them all in order. So here we have elevation A, which when you look at it now, you know that it's a little boxed window poking out, but it also is like a punch in the hole because it starts a couple feet above the floor. Over here, it's interesting because they have this curved element and then a little bump out window. So when you're looking at this, it's hard to tell it's curved at all. It just looks like a line and a line. But that indicates some roundness here. Then as you look past it, if you did a section, you see that there's this little bump out area. And right in this little area must be some kind of window seat. Well, we see that window seat on number C. So this is a built-in window seat. And now I can see what it looks like. And there is a big window it sits in. And then we have our little triangle, this little pop-in, this little triangle pop-out window. So as you can see, this elevation reference symbol is really giving us important information. Without this, we wouldn't really know what we're looking at. We can just guess at best. You will be putting that reference symbol on your in your kitchen and bathroom. So some of the graphic requirements, let's look at some of the elevations. So to expand the process from cut, so right here, this is an elevation, but this is special. This is a section. We're going to do that in a few weeks. This is really slicing like a piece of cake into the very ground. But certain things, they show certain things. So when you're creating an interior elevation frame, it's really important to really thicken the walls here and show all of the windows and all your ceiling details here. And all these various lines represent something that's going on inside your space. So you provide a single line profile cuts at the frame. And then a lot of time we would poché, remember that word. Now this is for a section. When you're just doing the interior elevation, you don't actually show the whole wall, the inside of it like an x-ray. But when we do get into sections, we do poché or darken in the structure that we cut through. So you provide this little profile, the side element, and we show things like soffits and walls, cabinetry. We get really detailed with elevations. You can create kind of a sense of depth when you're doing interior elevations, and I'll show you some tricks how to do that using line weights in just the very way that what certain lines mean can convey certain looks. And we always want to compare this to a human scale. Sometimes we actually put little human figures in there just to give people an idea of the spatial height of things. So the spatial depth cue, due to some of our limitations or orthographic limitations, orthographic projection is what we can use to create some of these elevations. And we can do that right off the floor plan. So this is one of the walls off of a floor plan. They brought up various lines, and we're able to at least get all their vertical lines going. But as I said, that you also need to know heights. How high is this window above the floor? How high is the window? Now we know how wide it is, but we want to know how high is it? So if it's 2.5 feet above the floor and it's 4 feet, we need to know that information. We also need to know how high the ceilings are. Now, most doors are about 7 feet, and so that's standard. So that helps us out. But really, knowing these heights are key. Like I said, heavy weights, line weights, which mean thick line weights, those are always reserved for the most outline, the structural part, the thick outlines, and really big arches. Anything you would cut through would have a heavy line weight. And this creates boundaries, especially the floor is about the heaviest, the ceiling and the walls. Then you go, as the objects get more finer and detailed, you go into more of a medium weight when you get into the doors and the windows. And then you reserve the lightweight lines for textures and patterns. So the rule about depth and interior line weights, this gives us some depth perception, helps us to understand when we use these line weights, what they mean. So they all have significance. And like I said, we want to create the darkest line on the outside, and that's the nearest viewpoint. Then things start to fade away as they become lighter and lighter. So it gives a feeling of popping out. And some things you want to pop out, and some things you want them to recede. Now, there are different line types. We use broken or dashed lines. Sometimes we'll call those dashed lines hidden lines or phantom lines, but mostly hidden lines or dashed lines. These are used for different information. We use them to show cabinet hinges, which we'll look at in more depth. We use them to show certain things that are hidden, like upper cabinets. So you'll see dashed lines or hidden lines throughout both plan views and elevations. We also, just like a floor plan, we change tonal values in contrast, and it just depends. The larger, once again, the scale, the greater the detail. The smaller the scale, the less the detail. Here, they got very just kind of generic, and here we got more detailed with the brickwork because we're able to. If you start to add so much detail in the smaller drawings, they start to blur when you reproduce them, and they just blend together. So make sure you're using details according to the correct scale of your drawings. In our class, we're going to do 1/4 inch drawings and 1/2 inch. Well, the 1/2 inch drawings will have far more detail than the 1/4 inch. Anthropomorphic scale, this has to do with the human figure. This shows scale. It's important, many drawings and architects do this. They'll put people in the foreground and the background to kind of get an indication of the scale of the building. It makes it look realistic, and it gives you an idea of how high or tall something is. And so when we study that, that is really the human figure. We kind of utilize the human figure as a scale and compare it to our architectural details. I want to talk about some symbols. Now, a few weeks ago, you were doing several hatches, and here they are again. Brick, ceramic tile, glass has these diagonal lines, which make it look like it's shiny. Also, wood grains is more of a natural ribbon kind of feel. Stucco and plaster, although you can't see it here, is little dots, and then cut stone. You've done these before, and you will find that you're going to be using them more and more for interior and exterior elevations. And they really help the viewer understand, and the contractor, what's going on. On the left side, we do have more symbols here. Remember, we talked about the elevation reference, which was something like this. Now, this one says 1, 2, 3, 4. The one we saw had A, B, C, and D. It actually doesn't matter if you number your elevations or give them an alphabet letter. It depends on the architectural firm. This reference bubble, they've decided to name theirs north, east, south, and west. So maybe they're going to call this the north wall, and that's how they'll identify it. These are just able to, you just use these to identify the view. Now, I prefer to use A, B, C, and D and continue for however many elevations that we need. Once you put this in your floor plan, then it shows what view goes where, and as you do your elevations, you'll place that letter, number, or symbol next to the floor plan or the elevation. Now, similar to this is what we call a section reference. And this is when you cut through a floor plan, it's showing what direction you cut the section through. We'll go through that more in detail when I do a demo on a section, but this is another reference symbol we need to know about. Sometimes they'll just have two bubbles with arrows. Sometimes they'll just have this little tick mark that goes the same direction as this little arrow showing what view we're looking at. Now, sometimes they don't put an entire triangle or a diamond. Sometimes they'll just do individual elevation reference bubbles. These just refer to one specific wall. So many times we'll combine these depending how much space we have in an area. And we'll go through this in depth in later drawings. But here are reference bubbles for elevations. These are also for elevations for the views, and these are for sections. Now, kitchens are unique when it comes to elevations because they require a lot of detail, but also most architectural elements are dimensioned in feet and inches, but only in kitchen cabinetry do we dimension only in inches. So this is unique to kitchens only. And sometimes millwork, but mainly that's what kitchens are, millwork. We call this millwork, the cabinetry. So here on this beautiful elevation, we are seeing various cabinets. This is a refrigerator. Here are drawers with little holes. Those horizontal lines are hardware, and they indicate you pull these out. Here is an upper cabinet, another upper cabinet, a lower dishwasher, a lower cabinet, and then a cabinet under the sink, and here are windows. Now, what are these triangle-y things? These are dash lines. Remember we talked about dash lines? You can do either a dash and a little dash or several dash lines. What these represent on all cabinetry with doors represent the way they open. It means the hinge is here. So it's connected wherever the smallest point is. So you open up this cabinet out this way and this one out that way. Here, the hinge is here. It's connected here, so you open it outward that way. These, they're connected here and here, here and here. So you would open them one to the right and these to the left. This one just goes to the left. Now, what are these little guys? These are beautiful wall sconces. They're very detailed. So this is lighting. So this is great to know when you do elevations because you can see that you would need to tell your contractor where is the electrical go. So in kitchens, once again, they're in inches. Those little dotted little lines show what way it opens up. So wherever it's small, that's where the hinges are. We always draw the hardware that helps us understand if it's a drawer. You won't see that little dotted triangle on a drawer because it just pulls out. Only see it on something that opens, like a door. In a kitchen, we often will just put the word reefer, R-E-F, for refrigerator, or D-W for dishwasher. The windows would have the streaks on it. Often we'll design the backsplash of the tile, and we can get more intricate the larger the scale of the drawing. And once again, always dimension on kitchens and inches. So I do love this particular just elevation because it really has some nice detail. I just want to point out to you that the darkest line, the floor lines, and around the walls, and this has a soffit, some kind of dropped element. So it's dark. Then you get lighter. So those little delicate features of the subway tile is in your lightest line. And then you have some medium lines for your cabinetry and doors. And here's just the countertops. But things that are coming forward at you are darker and show a little bit more like they're protruding forward. So we do use line weight to create depth and give it more interest. So basically with elevations, we do one or two things is we use the floor plan and we may orthographic project it like we've done in a few little assignments. Or if we're blowing up the elevations, we go to the floor plan, we put our scale on the floor plan in one scale, and we measure it up on the next. So we go from scale and lift it up. Remember, with elevations, you always have to have a very important information. That is the heights of things, your ceiling heights, your window heights, how far they are off the floor, and any other architectural feature. And that's the key to elevations. I'll be doing the demo and I'll see you there.